All right, everyone. We've seen a huge shift in the North American market in the last few years from acquiring players at all costs, including huge promotional and marketing spend, to doing so sustainably. And here to help me unpack that shift are Martina Åkerlund, the CEO of CallsU, and Michael Daly, the former CEO of Catena Media. Martina, let's start with you. You've been in this business for over 15 years now. What are some of the hurdles that you're seeing operators face in terms of ROI, and how are you approaching that at CallsU?
I've been in this industry for almost 4 years, but my company, or the origins of the company, has been around for 18 years. I think that this industry is maturing, and it's been really focused on player acquisition, but with operators spending so much money on gaining players, we really need to make sure that we also keep them.
And Michael, turning over to you, so this hyper focus on profitability has led to massive shifts in the affiliate industry. Can you tell us a little bit about the changes that you've been seeing in this space, and how the industry has been reacting?
Sure. So I think one of the largest shifts is the shift to a revenue sharing model for the affiliates. It started in North America anyways as a CPA, cost per acquisition. Rates were exceptionally high as operators just tried to grab market share at all costs. It's not a very sustainable model for the operators, and it's not a very good model really when you get to the affiliate relationship with the operators. Can be almost hostile. A much more sustainable model is a revenue share, and it's a matter of then how do you come over to that because of what operators are still going to be in the market long term to have a revenue share relationship with, as well as at what point are the CPAs versus the revenue share, what's the net present value of each essentially, because it was also revenue share for a while in Europe meant lifetime. Lifetime in the US was being originally talked about as a 2-year or 3-year lifetime, which then didn't really pan out when you were talking about a CPA rate of $450 or $500 for a sport, or $800 or $1,000 for casino. So
just to clarify, this shift, it's really tying the affiliates' business models to the ROI of the operators, right? That's really what we're seeing happen here?
Yes.
Got it. And I mean, let's dig a little bit more into the strategies that you both have seen, the specific tactics that you found that are working for you, because I'm sure there's a lot of folks in the audience who might be facing some of these same challenges. So Martina, starting with you, can you share some of the specific things that you found is actually helping with ROI?
Absolutely. So working with personalized campaigns, personalized communication with the players, making sure that every time that they communicate or integrate with your brand, that it's positive. So when you reach out, it should feel like a service for the player. We always work with local callers and local expertise, and that's also a key thing.
Yeah, and what does that look like? Is that within your emails to customers? Can you just help us picture that a little bit, what that looks like?
Absolutely. Well, this is part of our secret sauce, but my partner, he's got 2 masters in marketing and a PhD in behavioral science, so he knows this really, really well, and he loves to dig into data. So we've been, for 18 years, we've been analyzing data. How do we communicate with players in a positive way? So in calls, it should be never over a minute. It should always we practice really well with our callers. All communication should be personalized. It should feel like a service for the player.
Yeah, and just a quick follow-up on that, can you talk a little bit about the role of retention versus acquisition? I mean, how are operators thinking about this as a priority? What is the value of retaining a customer versus acquiring a new customer?
I would say maybe up until now or recently, operators have mainly been focusing on acquiring players. They want to gain market share, and they're paying a lot for their players. But now, where the market is right now, then of course you also want to keep the players to increase your lifetime value. And by doing this in a good way, you can increase the lifetime value with 800%. So like not doing this in a good way, that's really like revenues walking out your door.
And how about for you over on your end, Michael? So are you also seeing this shift? Presumably with revenue share, you're also incentivized to be retaining these customers, right? For longer, the longer they bet, the more that the affiliate business is also benefiting from them as well, right? So how are you approaching that on your end?
So you saw that even before a shift to revenue share. If we're delivering a CPA to a customer, it still behooves us as the affiliate to ensure a lifetime value that justifies the CPA rate. It's much more transparent or mutually clear when you have a revenue share because you're starting to share some information about the player. So yes, it's about really how can you personalize that player's journey, because we know so much about them coming in, about what they searched for and the like, and what they do on our site. So how can you move their call to actions and the like on the site to be more personalized for what they're doing. And then as they come back for retention, you don't want to be showing them a bunch of different operators if they're already signed up to one. So it's an interesting shift, but I think the operators are just getting going on how to maximize that relationship with vendor affiliates, et cetera, in order to ensure that they can get that return, because they've been very focused on capture, but that's not where the real value will lie long term.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, what other kinds of customer data have you found to be the most valuable here?
So it's on two ends for an affiliate. It's the customer data of who the customer is on your site, so you can better personalize their journey. So, we were doing some things, we started a joint venture down the path of AI, because if we could take our journalists and expand their sphere of influence by, instead of one article, could you get it to 10 articles? So you could take one cohort that was finding a search term and saying, this is the best I'm going to get closest to what I'm interested in. And if you can then turn that into 10 articles and subset that cohort to be smaller cohorts of people, okay, that's what I'm really interested in this article. And it's written by the same person, just assisted with AI in order to have more versions of it out there with more focus on certain parts of it, which they couldn't do in the same day that they could do with the technology. The other side is that with the operators is cohorting your players you're bringing through. If it's not on revenue share, how do you do, okay, this is a high value versus a lower value player based on the journey they came into the site with. So maybe that means you have different rates for that, or during different events, Super Bowl or the Triple Crown, you get massive traffic, but they're much less valuable than the person who's betting on the first day of the NFL season.
Right. And how about for you, Martina? What kind of data have you found to be the most valuable?
Well, it's what do player like? I think like casino and sports betting. That's like entertaining, and we want the players to be able to play and with brands as long as they find it entertaining. So it should always feel positive. We look into the data. What do they like? What time of the day do they have the time to speak with us? If it's in a time for a game, maybe that's the time to reach out. Maybe it's after the game instead, when they can speak. So it's just analyzing the data, also A/B testing what works well, what doesn't work well, what callers are performing well, like tone of voice, just like the personalized interaction with players that feels positive.
To that point of what's worked and what hasn't worked well, are there specific strategies that you're leaning away from, that operators are leaning away from because they're just not cost effective, they're not efficient, they're not really delivering on ROI?
Well, I would say like working with, or like the service that we provide is something that can be really, it's difficult for an operator to set it up in a cost-efficient way. Like operators, it's good for them to be able to focus on their product, to focus on the experience, and focus on the player experience. And setting up a call center, like working with like different kind of communication, setting up like the systems for it, it takes time and effort from their core business. So I would say like cooperating with someone that really this is the expertise. but also everything that isn't measurable. Like always look into the data. You might think, like I hear the comments so many times that, well, when someone calls me, I'm really bothered by it, but while it's our most amazing communication method, but it's really important that you do it the right way. So don't use intuition when you're setting things up. Really look into the data because you might be surprised.
Got it. Okay, so less bringing in-house and necessarily building out some of these call centers and whatnot in-house, working more with partners is the direction you're seeing folks shift in, and also being very data-minded. How about on your end, Michael?
So things we saw from the affiliate side that definitely didn't work for the affiliate, and I think we're now starting to see the operators pull back on the same. So direct-to-consumer advertising, which is something affiliates don't typically do, and so we've experimented in those things. You know, whether you're advertising on the New York subway or traditional advertising, definitely absolutely doesn't work for an affiliate because you have at least a second layer they have to go through to. But we had to try such things to see in-person registration may or may not work, but that's a very expensive model. But you even see the operators as they're looking for profitability pulling back massively on the direct advertising because it is just a shoot without data sort of analysis of bringing players in.
Yeah, and I wanna take a moment to talk a bit about responsible gaming and how to do this responsibly, because we are up here, discussing how to get people to continue betting, and there's a responsibility to gamer to do that in a way that is good for the consumer as well. So tell me a little bit about like the tough conversations you've had to have, tactics, marketing strategies that are actually kind of unsavory and that you've leaned away from because they're not good for the consumer.
Bonus coding.
Bonus coding.
So I think that's one that's always a topic of discussion, and with us, the operators, and there's bonus spamming. That's one of probably the most common affiliate practices in Europe, and it leads to super low value players, first of all. So it's not good for the ROI. It's not good for the industry because you're just creating massive amounts of traffic around really bad terms. And so that's one that can be difficult because when you talk to a board or the like, it's a very cheap way to get customers. They're very low value customers. In a CPA relationship also, you may not care if you're not planning to be around for the long term. But that's one that always brings up both responsible to the operator, but also responsible to the community at large and how much you do with such things.
Right, and Martina, what about on your end?
Well, I would say that it's. I can completely understand this, but also that it's not tough. Like we have regulations that we need to stick to, and also we are seeing fairly a lot of examples right now where like operators haven't done this in a good way. And I think if you want to build a sustainable business that lasts over time, you have to do it the right way and in a responsible way, and also. We want the players to play in a sustainable, responsible way. As long as they find it entertaining, we want them to stick around with the operator's brand. So I think that if you want to be around for the long time, this is the only way to do it.
Well, can you share an example perhaps on the opposite end then, something that has actually been really successful that also really does draw a fine line in terms of being good for the consumer as well?
Well, absolutely. I think we're now like this industry is maturing, and all of us are part of building a better reputation for this industry. And coming back to that, is entertaining. Like we have so many people in the society that views gambling as something that isn't good doing, and we have almost like a third of the population that is not gambling but potential customers. And by regulating the industry, building the reputation and the trust of the industry, we're able to attract so many new players. So I think this is the right way of doing it, and we're all part of that shift.
Yeah, another thing that you and I were talking about sort of in preparation for this was around reactivation and what a key element that is for ROI as well. Can you share a little bit about the importance of that, how you're thinking through reactivation strategies?
Well, absolutely. Like coming back again to how operators, they're working hard and they're paying a lot to gain their players. And of course, they want to make sure to keep them. You can increase the lifetime value in like amazing ways by doing this in a good way. So communicating with the players, making sure that they always view your brand as positive and that they always get reminded of the service that you're offering. That's a great way of building trust and how do you say, like connection with the players.
You already know who they are as an operator. You have them in your database. You understand these players for reactivation. So you've already done the hardest part of finding them out of the needle in a haystack of somebody who's interested in the type of products you have, because they've actively come in and they've actively engaged. So going back for reactivation is a logical step, but is often ignored because we have this giant database of 30 million people, but we have an active of 3 million. Well, that means you have a massive opportunity that, yes, is much cheaper to recover than finding a new player.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier to keep one than to find a new one.
Or bring one back again.
Yeah.
Because they have an engagement. You can engage and say, what did you enjoy? What did you not? You can find commonality.
Are you finding that you have to convince operators, convince partners that they should be focusing on this cohort, or is that something that's now pretty top of mind for folks?
I would say that it's a natural development of the market right now. Like margins are being pushed, competition increases, regulation increases. So you really, if you want to continue having a really successful business, you have to focus on ROIs and making sure that the players stay with you.
In North America, as expansion has slowed, it's not by any means done, but it's slowed, and operators need to start to focus on what they've already obtained, and that's who the players they have today are and how to improve their experience with them. So I think it's naturally occurring. The operators are very savvy, so it's as you say, it's a natural trend, and it's going to continue and accelerate, particularly during periods where expansion is less inclined.
And we've got just 30 seconds left, so I just want to end up with a more forward-looking question here. I mean, what's the biggest shift that you're watching in your industries right now as you look at 2024, 2025, and what's changing your businesses?
Well, I would say regulation. That's like it's really affecting us, but also how all of us together has to work on like building the reputation of this industry.
Yeah, it's probably regulation as it relates to the whiplash effect from over-advertising, where we're seeing regulators come out, and particularly against affiliates, going, well, you've got your media, so you must be the ones putting all this out in the direct advertising, so we need to eliminate affiliates from the market, potentially. So it's an education to understanding that we're probably the safest way you can engage, because we're not out, minus one or two experiments we've tried in the past. We're not out doing direct advertising. We're waiting for someone who actively searches, says, I'm interested in this, to come in and do the thing that we found to be the most effective, which is educate them.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Michael, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.